All right, it is 7:30, so we're gonna get started. I'm actually gonna leave my camera off as well. Nobody needs to see that tonight. Um, I'm gonna quick go through the two assignments for this class and then the big one for 590, your capstone. So this first one, you're describing the topic that you're interested in exploring and studying, and you need to cite at least three references that you find, which informed the existing literature surrounding the issue or problems. So, for example, if I wanted to look at, I'm going to steal somebody's here, um, nonverbal students and trauma, I would need to find at least three references. I was just grading. So it wasn't one that I was like, oh, this is the best one. It was a good one that happened to be one that I had just looked at when I was grading. But cite at least three references about that. And one thing that I highly recommend is as you're reading these articles and studies, make sure you look at their references because you may find that there are, we'll call them foundational articles that everything you're finding is referencing. And you definitely want to go back and read that as well. So this first one, you're citing three and saying what you want to research and why. Talk about the research that you found and how it connects to the program essential question. Describe why you're interested and describe what you hope to learn and or contribute to the understanding of this topic. This can be preferably in third person, but if you want to do first person, that is fine as well, because these last two are pretty hard to do in third person. It's only 3 to 4 pages of content, with the other 2 pages being the title and reference pages. So try not to stress out about this one too much, because if you get farther into it and you hate your topic, you can always change it. That is 100% okay. I think the last time I taught this course of cohort about 18, I think I had 4 or 5 people change it after this assignment before the literature review. For the literature review, hi pup, my dog is probably going to climb on my lap here. You only need to select and read 5 scholarly peer-reviewed research studies. That is specific for a reason. They have to be research studies and they need to be peer-reviewed. It is very possible that 3 of those are the ones that you did in your proposal of the research topic. You can do more if you want, but it needs to be at least 5. You're going to ensure that you have the correct citations, and you include how each study is related to the research question. The way I like to see this written is not this article connected in this way, this article connected in this way. It is more of a discussion of the topic where you're citing the sources. An example of that is in our support resources. I put my dissertation. Like I said, I'm not an author. I don't write often. This was my first time doing it. So know that there are errors and it's not a perfect example, but it is an example that I feel just fine sharing because it was mine, and you guys can tear it apart all you want because it was mine. But you'll see how I break it down by topic and then a whole bunch of articles under each topic, rather than here's an article I read and everything that was in it. Here's the next article I read and everything in it. The way this assignment reads is more the second way, but the first way is a better way to write it and will set you up more for success for the final one, which is the capstone paper. I have not taught 590 yet, but I have been a second reader for these. And what I want you to notice is that the literature review is just a bigger version of the one you're doing for this class. So that will be 16 to 18 pages. Our literature review doesn't have a page limit on it. The number that they do give you to look at is that it's a minimum of 15 scholarly peer-reviewed resources. And notice this time it's resources and not research studies. So this should include some research studies, but also journal articles, online resources, conference, summit papers, etc. So if you find a topic that you really like, you can already start working on this. When you do 590, there's weekly check-ins on how you're doing. and it's very structured. It'll also end up being a pass-fail. And to keep the anxiety down, as a second reader, I think I ended up reading about 25 of these, and only one of them did I recommend didn't pass, and that was because it was written almost like a bullet pointed list for 16 pages, and none of the APA stuff was correct, which I thought at that point in a master's program, we should be at least be able to do a citation in text and a reference page. So just know that this is the rubric. I posted it in our support resources. So if you're very curious about what your capstone paper will look like, it will most likely end up being very, very close to what it currently is. I am now going to open the floor for your guys' questions, either on anything I've shared or just in general, how to do research and your topics. I have nobody who has submitted topics in any of the discussion boards has something that isn't workable. Every single person who posted something, we can work from what you already have. So I'm gonna stop talking and open it up for you guys.
Hello, this is Stephanie. Since no one else is jumping the gun here, I will. So I got some feedback from you on my different questions, and the one that you had suggested that I look more into is the one about creating a safe place for students where they can go when they're dysregulated, and then teaching them skills so that they can be on their own in this space. And I think you had suggested something about looking at maybe when they're in different spaces or different disciplines or whatever. And I'm just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit. And I'm really struggling with how to guide this research.
Yeah. So because you're not doing the research yourself, you're doing more of a review of other studies, a meta-analysis, so to say.
Okay.
You could look at studies where schools implemented a safe space,
Okay.
other studies where they were trying other things, or some of the studies where they implemented a safe place may have the before data for you.
Okay.
Does that make
Now,
sense?
yep. Now, can I use data that I've collected, or is it just, it's like, for example, I just finished my first year as a behavior interventionist.
Yep.
But I took my knowledge from when I was working in a level 4 EBD and kind of created a program.
Yep.
And I have data to show like the behavior referrals from before my program, but that's
Is
not in a
it
proper place?
published anywhere? Like, is it
Oh,
on your school's website somewhere?
no, it's just in my previous assignments, but it's not published anywhere.
Ooh, if it's in previous assignments, I would say that you could use it not as one of your 5, but as
Right?
supporting information and cite yourself.
Okay.
Um, and know that like for the capstone, that's probably not going to work
Okay. Okay.
just because the readers will need to be able to access those.
Right.
And
And I
you're
actually did do just some research on my own during the school year of different schools who have created behavior intervention programs and
Yep,
having calming corners. So that might be something I could look more into those schools.
absolutely.
Okay.
If the capstone was written in a way where you were doing action research and you actually needed to do a research component, you're way
Okay.
ahead of the game. But this
All right.
capstone is written in a way that it is a meta-analysis of existing research.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yep. Corey?
Sorry, so I
Oh,
just want to clarify that this it's not an action research. So this
that
is not
is,
us
yes,
applying into our classrooms. I think I don't know for anybody else, but for me that'll make a difference on for sure what direction I'll go
I
into.
100% agree. And that's why I went and actually pulled the
thank
capstone
you for
paper
doing that.
guidelines,
Yeah.
because I thought it was an action research, because that's most master's programs that I've ever been involved with. And this one does not. It has a discussion, application, future studies chapter where you're talking about insights and what you would like to research, but you're not actually conducting the research. And
That
for
is
this
really
class,
good.
you're definitely not conducting research, by which I mean you're not doing it in your class. You're just looking at existing stuff.
Well, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it's so if I gave anybody feedback like, oh, you need to be able to research this, ignore that. It was wrong. I don't think
That takes a load off.
Mm-hmm. It's good to think of how you would do it in your classroom, because then you can look for studies that did that. Then Corey, do you have a question?
If I have one more, sorry to keep asking questions, but this has to do more with once we finish this master's program, I have my bachelor's in elementary ed and special ed. And now this master's, what is something we could look at to do for a doctorate if we wanted to move on? Like I'm struggling to find a program that we could move on with from this master's.
Mm-hmm. So I would say my doctorate is in educational leadership from St. Mary's, and that was really geared more towards consulting and going in and making changes. Otherwise, there's a lot of admin programs, but outside of the one I did and the admin programs that I looked into for admin licensure, I don't know a ton of them.
Okay.
I will say St. Mary's was great because while it was kind of focused on going in and doing work to help schools and just organizations change,
Mm-hmm.
all of the assignments were built in a way that you got to choose your topic. So all of mine were based around the work I did in my classroom.
So like if I was looking at eventually being a consult and creating this behavior intervention program in different schools, that might be a good way to go.
Without trying to endorse a single program, I would say that I felt ready to go in and to an organization and be like, let me see what's going on. Okay, here are some possible steps to improve.
Okay. It's good to know. Thank you.
And don't feel bad about asking questions. That's why we're here.
I guess if no one else has asked any questions, mine is focused right now on regulation, and I guess I'm just not sure if I'm being too specific or not specific enough. Corey, are you able to talk? Because you can talk before me. Okay, maybe I'll wait if he starts talking. Um, I guess that's my question. I don't know if I'm being too general or not specific enough. I
Can
mean,
you
would
give
that be
me,
it?
so regulation, in what way? With what group
So
of
I guess,
students?
yeah, I don't know if I should be specifically like choosing a regulation skill or strategy, or talking about like the specific students that would be engaging in it. I am also really interested in that reset process book that we had read before in their program, but I'm not sure if that's something that would even, since that's just a book that was wrote on it, if that's something that
Do you remember what year that book was published in?
it was just, I'm not sure. It was one of the books that we just had read in one of our previous classes, so I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
If it's more than 3 or 4 years old, odds are there's probably some research that somebody's done about using it in their classroom. at least as an
Okay.
action research project, which you can probably find on one of the databases. What I
Mhm.
would say is if you just type in regulation, you're going to get 10,000 articles.
Yeah.
Where if you said regulation in fourth grade classrooms, you're now probably down to 1,000.
Yeah. And
So,
I've been able to like pull some that are more, specific for regulation with trauma or regulation in the general ed classroom, which is
yep.
more, I guess, my focus. But I know some other people are interested in this too, would be like the secondary trauma aspect of it.
Okay.
I'm super interested in, but is that something that would lend to the capstone or does it
Yeah.
need to be focused on the students?
No, it can definitely be focused on you guys.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Because a big part of the program is the secondary trauma for teachers. And you can't do the work if you're not there because you're dealing with secondary trauma every day.
Very true. I had two teachers in my district too, and my fifth grade team who just left this year because of that. So, gonna be more
Mhm.
accurate. Thank you.
Yep. So that brings up a really good point. If you're doing your searches on your articles and you're getting 10,000, just throwing out a random number. First thing, shorten the year span. So make it like from the last 10 years or the last 5 years and see how many you got. If you still have 10,000, your topic is probably too broad. I would say just throwing a number out. If you have under 1,000, you're probably okay. You've probably narrowed it down enough because there's no way you're ever going to read all of those articles. And you're going to have to start reading, a couple a week and looking in their references to see what sources is everybody who's doing research in this topic referring to. I found that that was the best way to find the best articles was to read a whole bunch of them and see what everybody else was referencing. Because there's usually going to be 5 to 10 articles per big topic that everybody cites. Odds are, if we're looking at trauma, just about every article you read is probably going to cite the original ACEs study if it's, more than a 10-page article. Natalie, Emily, or Morgan, do you guys have any questions?
I didn't have any specific questions. I'm currently down in downtown Lakeville at a celebration. I was just kind of interested in everybody else's questions to see if it could help guide me. And I've got a lot of information that has helped. So I'm very excited to take this information with me and be like, okay, now I can start and understand what I'm doing.
Then Panaprog, not for like 2 weeks.
No Panaprogs right now. Tonight is beer brats and bingo.
Fair. Emily or Morgan?
I don't have any specific questions either.
Okay.
So thank you for hosting this though, because this was very helpful.
Absolutely. I hosted one at the end of the course, like week 6 last time. And that was the biggest feedback is they would have liked one before assignment 3 as well. Well, assignment 3, which is week 3.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't have any specific questions at this time either. I was just curious what other people were saying, and this was helpful information. So thanks for hosting.
Absolutely. As always, if you think of anything, shoot me an email. I'm not going to specifically tell you yes or no on. I may tell you no on it, but I'm not gonna be like, yes, this is exactly the study you should do because it's your study. And I don't want to be the one deciding that for you. I may help you wordsmith, but I'm gonna probably give you 4 options every time you ask me. I'm not gonna give you just one and say this is the right way to do it because that's not how I want to do this. If that makes sense to everybody.
No, that definitely does. That is very helpful because it was very much like a hey, you can do anything you want to. And I'm like, just give me a little bit of scope. So no, this has been
Yep.
very helpful. Thank you so much.
I will say for my dissertation, I got a big smack in the face from the Department of Corrections telling me, no, you can't have access to the data that you have access to all day, every day. And I literally went back to my dissertation advisor, like, I don't know what to do. This is what I've been studying and working on for 5 years. Like, what do I do? He's like, you can write about anything. If you want to write about how Mario impacts daily life, do it. And that was like both terrifying and refreshing. Like, yeah, I've spent all this time doing this one research, but if I need to switch it to something else, the program is totally okay with that. So if you spend this entire course researching it, and at the end you're like, yeah, I've written this paper, but this just doesn't feel right for me to do, like it doesn't connect with me for some reason, or I'm just really sick of the topic, you can change your topic for the capstone for 590. That is 100% okay. So don't feel like just because you wrote it for this class, you're locked into it. If you want to keep going from where you're at with this class, it's going to make the workload in 590 a lot shorter and a lot smaller because you can continue building up that article base up until the time that you're in that class. But if you want to restart, you can restart from scratch. That's totally okay. And if nobody else has questions, I will throw out some ideas for keeping track of research. I did it very old school in that I printed every single article, hard copy, and I use color-coded Post-it notes. I highly recommend not doing that. I recommend finding an online resource or OneNote, Excel, Word, something to track the articles you've read, and then to start putting themes underneath them. This article was about this. I think in one of our previous classes, I talked about doing an annotated bibliography, where you do the APA citation for everything you read, and then just a 1-paragraph summary of what it was. And add in like a little section where it says themes. So that way you can search that document for the themes that you're looking for. So going back to regulation, if you keep working on this throughout the program, even when you're in other classes that have specific readings, if you're adding them to your annotated bibliography, you can search for that theme later on and be like, well, I want to write about regulation, and I know I've read chapters of books and articles on this. You can go back into your annotated bibliography and just search for it versus having to go back and read all those articles again. So that is something I highly recommend that will save you a lot of time on the tail end. But otherwise, I don't have anything else for you guys. I don't want to take up any more of your nights than I have to. I will stay on until 8 o'clock. I will keep recording until 8 o'clock, just in case any of you have more questions or other people pop on. Otherwise, feel free to leave. Otherwise, you're just going to be staring at a quiet screen.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for everything everybody's posted so far.
Yeah, thank you for answering your question or my questions.
Absolutely. Let me know if you have more.
Okay.
A little off topic, but relating back to your Mario reference,